The Young and the Restless, Y&R, recap for Tuesday, October 7th, hints that Tessa Porter, Kate Fairbanks, will provide an update on what she learned when she investigated Mariah Copeland's, Cameron Grimes, horror business trip, which includes the mystery man's identity. Plus, Nikki Newman, Melody Thomas Scott, will spar with Jill Abbott, Jess Walton. So it's time to talk about Tuesday's Y&R show. The sad part is, Nikki and Jill started on pleasant terms when Jill arrived at the Newman Ranch. Nikki thanked Jill for selling Chancellor to Victor Newman, Eric Braden, and Jill nicely confirmed that Catherine Chancellor, Jean Cooper, would have approved of Nikki running her company. With that said, the niceties were cut short when Nikki blatantly asked Jill if she was going to help her, and Victor stopped Kane Ashby, Billy Flynn. As fans know, Kane has his sights set on taking over the companies from the three major powerhouse families in GC, the Newmans, the Abbotts, and, potentially, the Winters. Jill fluffed off Nikki at every turn during their conversation. At first, she pointed out that she had no real influence on Kane, and when Nikki pressed that Jill knew Kane was Aristotle Dumas before the world did, Jill shrugged off the idea that Kane was as diabolical as Nikki thought. Over at Society, Phyllis Summers, Michelle Stafford, entered to see Victor there, and she joined him at a table. The two sparred during their entire conversation, as Victor played mind games to see if he could get Phyllis to spill on Kane's plan, and Phyllis hurled some insults his way, as well. Victor finally decided to leave the establishment. He paid the tab, only for Nick Newman, Joshua Morrow, to enter. With that said, instead of insults, Nick tried to encourage and build Phyllis up the best he could in an effort to sway her against working for someone as ruthless as Kane. Especially considering what Kane was planning. Nick told his ex that she was enough and she could do something more with her career, something better. But Phyllis reminded Nick that, unlike him, she doesn't have a rich dad who can hand her a dream job at a moment's notice. Phyllis ended up storming out of Society, demanding that Nick butt out of her affairs, much to Nick's frustration. Back to Jill and Nikki, Victor arrived home to find Jill there. Nikki relented about the fact that Jill wouldn't budge her stance on Kane, and with a smug look, Victor promised to sway her. Across town, Y&R recaps for the Tuesday, October 7th show note that Sharon Newman, Sharon Case, was at Crimson, gearing up to head to the airport for Los Angeles to visit Noah Newman, Lucas Adams. However, Tessa stopped her from doing so. She and Daniel Romalotti, Michael Graziadei, returned from the deep dive into Mariah's business trip that had since left her rattled, and they provided quite a lot of information. Much to Sharon's horror, Tessa relayed that she showed Mariah's picture to the staff at the hotel she stayed at during her business trip, and the bartender remembered her. He revealed that Mariah met up with an older gentleman, whose name is Will Hensley, Michael Swan, and the two connected over drinks. Tessa also found out that Will and Mariah were drinking, got close, kissing, and headed upstairs, but what happened after that seems far more disturbing than Mariah connecting with an older gentleman in general. When Sharon saw the photo of Will, she was shocked and believed that he may have taken advantage of her daughter. Still, Tessa interjected that Mariah had told her she had tried to kill an older gentleman that night, so it was safe for Tessa to assume that said older gentleman was Will, and he didn't hurt Mariah. It was the opposite. It's hard to know whether or not Mariah was intimate with Will, but Tessa was rattled at the fact that the staff noted Will checked out halfway through the night and did not want to wait until the morning to leave the hotel. He left in a rush, and while he was alive, he was also extremely shaken. The staff was unaware of Mariah's state the morning after, as she did a contactless checkout. Tessa reminded Sharon that Mariah had stated she began drinking as a way to process the trauma she endured from Ian Ward, Ray Wise. Tessa noted that Will is around the same age as Ian and has the same body type, so perhaps something about Will triggered Mariah to do what she did, based on her Ian memories. Y&R recaps imply that Daniel had an even creepier theory. As Will didn't die, Daniel thought he may be seeking retribution on Mariah for the incident. The Young and the Restless spoilers state that Daniel believes Mariah could be in more danger than everyone realizes. So is this foreshadowing a potentially dire situation on the horizon for both Mariah and Tessa, along with anyone else in their orbit? CDL is where it's at for the most up-to-date Young and the Restless spoilers and news, so swing by often for the best Y&R intel. The Young and the Restless, YNR, spoilers update for Tuesday, October 7th, reveals that Tessa Porter, Kate Fairbanks, will shock Sharon Newman, Sharon Case, while Nick Newman, Joshua Morrow, interrogates Phyllis Summers, Michelle Stafford. Nikki Newman, Melody Thomas Scott, will also ambush Jill Abbott, Jess Walton. So, here's what YNR viewers can look forward to. Once Jill arrives on the Newman property, Nikki will swoop in for a private discussion with her. There'll be some things Nikki wants to get off her chest, so it appears she'll want to make peace and bury any past problems. Since the Newmans need Jill on their side as they go up against Kane Ashby, Billy Flynn, it's best if Nikki tries to play nice and butter Jill up a bit. Of course, Victor Newman, Eric Braden, will want a chance to speak with Jill as well, and we'll have some surprising updates for her in the coming episodes. In the meantime, Sharon will finally get some news from Tessa and Daniel Romalotti Jr., Michael Graziade, regarding their trip to investigate Mariah Copeland's, Cameron Grimes' former hotel. Although Sharon has been waiting on a phone call, she'll end up getting the latest info in person since Daniel and Tessa will already be back in Genoa City. Tessa will seem uneasy as she prepares to divulge something awful. Since Mariah attempted to smother a stranger, Michael Swan, Tessa and Daniel may have learned some disturbing details. Mariah emphasized the fact that she tried to kill a man, so what happens if he's truly still alive? Could that mystery guy go after Mariah and her loved ones for revenge at some point? Whatever the case, Tessa will have some major fears when it comes to Mariah's safety, so Daniel will offer more comfort. Across town, YNR spoilers say Nick will back Phyllis into a corner and demand some answers. It turns out Nick will have more questions about Phyllis's allegiance to Kane and how far she's really willing to take this partnership. Since Phyllis thinks she can take care of herself, she won't appreciate Nick constantly nagging her about this. The Young and the Restless spoilers say Phyllis will stand her ground when it comes to doing what's best for her own life, so Nick may just have to accept that. CDL's where you want to be for hot Young and the Restless spoilers, updates, and news, so make us your top source.